Hello, everyone. We are live here. We're doing a morning show for the first time. Bright and early. It's 8 a.m. here in California, in LA. I'm here with Yulin Olliver, my
Hello,
super good
everyone.
friend, and
We are
my
live
mentor,
here. We're doing a
let's see,
morning show
colleague,
for the first time.
mentor,
Bright and early. It's 8
basically
a.m.
big
here in
sister.
California, in LA.
And I'm
here
really
with
excited to.
Yulin
And
Olliver, my
Bexley,
super
who
good friend, and
is her
my
daughter, is
mentor,
also here, as well as Punka and Chinley, who you guys can't see, but they're here. You can kind of see Punka.
Good to be here.
So, for those of you who don't know, Yulin has done a million things in the industry. But most recently, she founded Yunexis Agency, which is an agency that advocates for female skateboarders. And she's also a partner and the VP of Business Development for WSA, which is the Women's Skateboard Alliance, Skateboarding Alliance, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And we'll also talk about all the other things that you do, because those aren't the only things that you do. But first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. This is great. This is great, Kim.
Cool. So we have some icebreakers from Alex White. Thank you, Alex, you're the new writer of the icebreakers on the show. And I'm just gonna shoot them off. So here we go. High five, fist bump, or hug. Cool. So we have some icebreakers from Alex White. Thank you, Alex, you're the new writer of the icebreakers on the show. And
Not fist bump,
I'm just gonna shoot them off.
but the other two pretty equally.
Okay. Either high five or hug.
High five, fist bump,
Okay,
or
got it.
hug.
Awesome. What is the most number of dogs and babies you've hiked with at once?
Babies? Only one, I'd say. Maybe two.
Okay. Either high five or hug.
Most number of dogs.
Awesome. What is the most number of dogs and babies you've hiked with at once?
Yeah.
6 dogs plus the baby, or that was a separate?
Separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about, was it just 1 baby and 2 dogs then? The current setup is like the maximum?
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. If you guys follow Yulin on Instagram, you'll see that she hikes a lot.
Yeah.
And because that's a big bear with the dogs and the baby.
Separate.
Alex is inspired by that, I think. That's why she asked that. When do you sleep?
I guess so. Yeah. I typically go to bed around 10 at night. I'm kind of like a 9.5 hour. Like, don't really function so well. Like,
when do you sleep? Awesome.
Yeah.
Got it. That's impressive. French fries or salad?
I'm a big fan of salads lately. You know, like going heavy on the greens.
Okay.
French fries. You know, if like sweet potato fries are around.
French fries or salad?
I'm a fan of those.
Okay. Salad and
I think they go with each other. Salads lately.
Yeah, they do. You know, well, it's like you're healthy, and then you like get a little bit of a cheat in. So,
yeah.
But
there's like there's a place nearby called Father's Office that has like you probably get both.
Okay.
I think they go.
I like that. So the answer is both, Alex.
Yeah, they do.
What's the most important thing in your purse or pocket every day?
There's like there's a place nearby called Father's Office. My phone. Probably get both.
Your phone. Okay.
Yeah.
I like
It's a little bit of Pandora's box.
Yeah.
But
what's the most important thing in your purse or pocket every day?
I mean, I kind of get the question about sleep. Like sometimes maybe it seems like I'm really productive or something, you know, and like, and the sleep doesn't really happen. But with the phone, like when I first had the baby, if I was nursing or something, you know, I might actually be able to check a couple emails. Just because I had the phone.
Yeah.
And it also, like, I'm not at all the events anymore like I used to, but I still feel really present, like as if I were there through the phone.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Sure. Double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Love-hate relationship with the phone.
Yeah, definitely like turn it off though. Like we have unplugged time, like during like family time and stuff. But I still feel really present because if I were there.
From 2014 to 2017, did you just pre-order the Street League first place trophy printed with Nigel's name to save time?
Turn it off. That's awesome. No, but I think the courses definitely were created with him in mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just knowing that he was going to be like the shining
awesome.
superstar poster child.
Yeah,
or-
just getting really granular, like,
No.
you know, what's he really great
but
at and like who's good at what.
I
And if
think the
we were to
courses
try to kind of
definitely
like
were created
level
with
the
him in
playing field
mind.
a little bit, like
Yeah.
how do we
Just knowing that he was going to be
you know,
like
create a course that like
shining
highlights
superstar.
everyone's
Yeah.
strengths.
Yeah, just
Yep.
getting really great.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. She asked, do you pay Richie Valdez in hair products?
Would I?
Yes. Or back then, I guess, maybe in Street League days, or I don't
You know, Richie's just one of my favorite people ever. Yeah, I was definitely surprised when he went blonde. Yeah, he's just a unique guy. Like he might not have even been like been part of the conversation. I don't know. Like it's so obvious to us. You're like, holy crap, you're blonde, and he'd be like, what? What are you talking about?
Nice. Okay, favorite snowboard or skate session snack?
Snack.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big burrito fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you get burritos when you're snowboarding? After?
You
In
know,
Big Bear? There's a spot. Where's the spot?
you know, most of my snowboarding was in Utah,
Okay.
and we used to go to Molca Salsa.
Okay.
Either breakfast burrito, like even when I was working at Demon, and like would sometimes have to pick up some of the athletes, like they'd be like, can we just go through drive-through and get some Molca Salsa breakfast burrito?
Yeah.
And like when you come down, it's at the bottom of the hill, and like you're just starving, and so that's like the first thing you get, or you like, yeah, bring it with you. I don't know.
That's funny. I was with Vera in Whistler, and
Yeah.
they like snowmobile, like they sled, and they bring frozen burritos, and they put it in
Really?
like a compartment of the snowmobile where near the engine, so it like cooks while you're like sledding. And she's like, "Here's a hot burrito." I'm like, "How did that happen?" It's crazy. Okay, cool. Let's see. Hey guys, welcome. We got 4 viewers hanging out with us. If you have any questions for Yulin, just go ahead and keep them in mind, and later towards the middle of the show, we'll take some of your questions. But thanks for hanging out with us. I know
Hi,
it's early
viewers.
morning. So I guess I want to know about the past. So I know you grew up in the East Coast. What was life like for you growing up? Like, what kind of kid or teenager were you, and how did you eventually? I guess let's start with that, and then we'll talk about your jobs and like the path to where you're at.
So I'm originally from outside of Boston,
Mm-hmm.
this little town called Hopkinton. It's
Mhm.
our big claim to fame is where the start of the Boston Marathon.
Oh wow, okay.
So one traffic light, like 500 kids, 7 through 12. Pretty small, which was awesome to grow up in like a small town. And once a year, like my family and I would go skiing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually like 5-7 day trip or something. And at least like a couple years ago, that was kind of the average American, like if they snowboarded or skied, like they got in about 5 or 7 days. And so that was totally us. And I just found that I was so drawn to it. I was like addicted, like I could never get enough.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just actually being on my skis. I actually loved like hanging out with the folks in the rental like area who fitted me. Like I just wanted to be like part of their lives. Like they were cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want
Ski
to.
bum life.
Yeah. I was like, I need more of this. And it never went away. So like even as a kid, and then I just grew up, and then I started spending more and more time in the mountains, dating guys who lived in the mountains. I was just like fully immersed.
That's awesome. That was like part of, I was definitely like, that was like my dream, never happened. But your parents are from Taiwan, right? Like my parents are from Taiwan too. How did they end up in this small town in Boston?
I guess they're entrepreneurs. I must get that from my parents.
Yeah.
But they came to the US, moved to Indiana, where they have a pretty good like welcoming program for international kids.
Okay. Do they go to college there?
Yeah.
Okay.
They went to graduate school there.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah. And then maybe just followed like where the work was, ended up on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Computer science, that type of thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So you grew up in the small town near Boston, and then you ended up going to school. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I went. Yeah, I was I don't know who else can maybe resonate with this, but I didn't know where to go to school. I didn't know where to go to college. I happened to be really good at running. So like a bunch of coaches from the colleges were like recruiting me, and I was like, I hate running. Like it hurts. It's like how long before you like basically faint, like, and I just happen to have like a high pain tolerance. So I won all the time. But I didn't, I didn't love it. So I was like, where's the furthest away I can get? And I ended up going to Indiana. Where I was born in Indiana, and my parents went to school there, and it just happened to be the furthest one away. But at that time I fell in love with snowboarding, and there's like no hills there.
So how would you drive, or did you just not snowboard in those?
I just didn't. I like had I was in a dorm room with a snowboard like sitting on the wall
in the corner. You're like, oh
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were studying to be.
I was studying to be a veterinarian.
Okay.
So like ever since I was probably 3 or 4, I knew that that's what I wanted to be. I
loved animals.
I was good with animals. Like I could connect with them. I could calm them, and I thought surgery was really cool. Like most people were like, "Ooh, gross." I was like, "Ooh, that's so awesome." People were like, I could never put an animal to sleep, and I was like, I think I could do that.
Wow.
And I was like, I'd be good at it. And so, I ended up going to vet school at Tufts Veterinary in Massachusetts. It was my dream, my lifelong dream to get into that school. It took me 3 years of applying. There's only like 25 or so schools at the time in the US. And
I've heard it's still really hard today.
It's still really hard. Like they only take their class sizes are like 45 to 70 per school. So it was really hard to get into. And that was a huge challenge. And it like meant something for me to not be able to get in. And then it also meant something to me that I got in. And then I ended up having to choose between snowboarding and vet school.
That's what you told me. You were there for a while, and then you're like, oh my God, I need to snowboard. And
it was the weirdest thing. I was like, I think if I just got 3s, all right, maybe all 4 3s, then I'll like feel complete and be able to like focus on my studies. And so I asked the dean for a year leave of absence so I could get my 3s.
360s.
360s.
Yes, okay.
To clarify. And I was like, I never got enough. It's kind of like skating, right? You're like, you never get enough. Like either you could be more consistent, or you could get like front side and back side and like switch and like, and so, and then maybe that jump, or maybe like, there's just always more.
The progression's addicting.
It was addictive. So I haven't gone back yet.
How many years in were you? Like how close were you?
I finished my first year.
Got it.
Yeah.
And what did you tell your parents?
Well, it was interesting. My dad was like, like I'm not making him wrong for this. But he was like, it took you so long to get in that he's like, I don't know if that's like what you're meant to do in this life.
Interesting.
And I was just like, F you. I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then like after a year, I was like, I think I really need to do this other thing. And he was probably just like, I'm right.
But you went anyways.
Yeah. And
so
honestly,
you like packed up and moved out to Utah.
Yeah. I mean, like getting in honestly shifted my life because
it was almost like you just needed to get that win. And then you were like, okay,
I probably didn't feel good enough until like I needed that external, at the time I needed that external approval from a vet school saying I was good enough or smart enough. And once I got to that point, I was like, you know what? I do feel complete actually.
And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna go snowboard.
And I can still like work with animals. And it doesn't mean I'm not good with them. Like even in vet school, the amazingly beautiful, smart, like I'm like soulmates with the people that I went to school with. I'm so impressed by them and I love them so much. And I'm so glad I had the opportunity to like spend a year with them and see their lives like take off in the world of animals.
And you got like, I mean, I don't if you guys ever get to see Yulin's dogs, like these guys are like the most obedient, like they're like humans. Like you can like talk to them and tell them like, okay, you can stop barking now, and they'll just be like, okay.
They're on voice command. We do voice command.
It's pretty amazing.
But even the folks that I went to school with were like, you're especially good with animals.
Yeah.
And I was like, from like the smartest person in our class, I was like, that's a real acknowledgement.
Yeah.
I get that.
Got it. Cool. And so then, okay, so you're in vet school. You decide to leave to snowboard. Like, what happens from there? Where do you go?
Drive my little pink Tercel, because that was the only one I could afford. Little Thule rack on the top, and packed it with all my worldly belongings, and just drove across the country and moved to Oregon.
How'd you choose Oregon?
I was like, I want mountains and ocean.
Okay.
So it was like either California or Oregon, and that was the one that, like, of course, I'm like kind of a pre-producer, so I like called them, and I was like, "Are you ready for me?" Yes. I was like, "I'd like to secure a job and a place to live before I arrive," and they're just like, right, because normally you just show up and you like make it work, and so, anyways, Oregon, like Mountain Hose, is the only one that actually like was like, "Yeah, I think we got a setup here for you."
Sweet. So you got a job at Mount Hood. Awesome. Then you started snowboarding, and then you eventually got some sponsors, right?
Yeah, like rode like 100 days a year.
Wow.
Just like worked really hard to get as good as and but what I actually got out of it was family. I kind of felt like I was like the island of the misfit toys. Like there we all made sense to each other. Yeah. Lifelong friends for sure.
And then so you were snowboarding for a while, like you did were you doing like contests? Were there contests back then?
It was before like the Roxy Chicken Jam.
Yeah.
So I rode for Betty Rides, Janet over at Betty Rides, Atomic Snowboards, Zeal Optics. It was awesome. I was mostly like a backcountry. I did stuff for like their catalog.
Yeah.
I had one appearance in Trans World Magazine in the editorial. And that was a huge career highlight for me. Yeah.
Have I seen that photo?
I don't know.
Is it hanging on the wall somewhere?
No, but
it's not the ad. I've seen the ad.
I know, yeah, because an ad is like paid, you know, so it like kind of doesn't really count.
That photo somewhere?
Yeah, okay. So I guess I have the magazine.
Okay.
I mean, it was like, you know, it wasn't.
It was like in the collage section or something.
Right? No, it was like I think it was like
it
was an article about resorts, and so I think I might have been featured in the Brighton resort one.
Awesome. Cool. I know that. I'm like new things every day. So then what happened from there? So you were snowboarding, and then somehow, I don't know if there's
I started, I mean, like
I was up at Phil TV.
I was always present to like how old I was. You know, that was like a little bit of a story, but I was like, I'm starting really old.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Like the kids growing up are tiny, like, and they're able to get super technical.
Yeah.
You know,
you were like 20 something at that point.
Yeah, I was like mid 20s. I was like, the most I can do is, I was like, what can I offer that's different from what all the other girls can offer? And I was like, I'm an adult, which means I can like drive out and like find my own like cliffs or things that I wanted to drop off of. Like I could curate my own photos, and I was really productive in like, where maybe like a child wouldn't be, like a sponsor could be like, dude, I need like 3 photos by like in 3 weeks. And I could actually like produce them myself.
Yeah. You were the pre-producer because you called them out, and like no one does that. Snowboarders or skateboarders generally don't be like, let's make a plan.
Let's make a plan.
Maybe if you're like on the level of like professional, but they're like, now we'll just go there and figure it out. So who did you ride with back then? Was it guys or girls or?
Mostly I was part of ski school, so I had a crew.
The people that worked there.
Yeah.
Like the family. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. And so then how'd you end up in Salt Lake City?
So that's a funny story. I lived in government camp for like 2 summers and a winter. And I met this guy named Brian, who I'm actually currently married to. And
Brian.
And like an off season, you're like, what do you do? Like, you know, from like August to November as a snowboarder. And then, so Brian was filming a movie called Declaration with Cooper Hoffmeister and Travis Robinson and Tom Flacco. And he was like, well, I'm going back to Salt Lake to edit. And do you, he's like, you could be the receptionist during your off season. I was like, sweet. So that's how I ended up in.
For Brian's company.
Yeah.
Nice.
There wasn't actually a receptionist job. He like worked out of his like apartment. But yeah, he was also working in New York as a PA. And so I had a free place to live for the off season.
And then you guys fell in love.
Yeah, a little off and on stuff, but yeah, then we ended up dating.
Awesome. And then you ended up moving out to LA and working at Fuel TV.
Yeah. So I mean, when we lived in Utah, that's when Fuel TV got started. It was like born out of a Blue Torch. Excuse me. So that's when I heard about Fuel, and I was like, all right, age-wise, sort of back to your other story, I feel like I only have like a year or two at most at this like dream life. So what's my next move? And I was like, I got to work in the industry. And I worked at Demon in Salt Lake for like a year or two, and it was pretty isolated. So I was like, I got to move to California. And then Fuel TV was like, Brian was producing a bunch of stuff for them. And then they were like, why don't you move out to LA too? So we both kind of had the calling to move out to LA.
Awesome.
And then I was like, what do I do with myself? So I went to business school and got my master's. And at that same time, I think that's when I met Cersei Wallace. So I first interned with her. And then my second move was I think an internship at Fuel TV. Or vice versa. I actually can't remember which one happened first. Yeah, in between those two, I was able to, like, my next move was a marketing manager position at Fuel.
Yeah. And so then you were full-time at Fuel for a few years, right?
Yeah, maybe two or 3 years.
Yeah. I remember, for those of you guys who don't, there's probably people who don't know what Fuel TV is. That's tragic.
I know, that's so sad.
Well, and also, I don't know, we have an international audience too. So
yeah, but I explained Fuel TV as like, remember if you ever went to the bar and there was like surfing on TV, that was probably Fuel. Yeah. So Fuel was like 6 sports: surfboarding, snowboarding, skateboarding. What did I say? Surfboarding, surfing,
motocross.
Yeah, snow, surf, skate, wake, BMX, and freestyle motocross.
Yeah. So it's basically action sports, and it was like, this was like before it was before. No, there was like internet, but it was like
it was before Facebook.
It was like just content everywhere. So like it was hard to find action sports video.
Yeah.
Just videos. And so this was a channel on cable that had 24 hours of like action sports, like shows, whether it was like talk shows or like documentaries. And like, for me, it was like, that was like the game changer. And like, I had dinner with our friend Shaw last night, and she was like, she would literally come home from school every day and watch surfing on Fuel TV.
Are you serious?
She was like obsessed with surfing, and that was the only access to it. It was either like go buy a magazine like Surfer in the bookstore, or turn on Fuel TV. There was literally nothing else. There wasn't YouTube. There wasn't Instagram.
There wasn't webcasts.
Yeah, no, that's like way.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was like, I remember launching the Fuel TV Facebook, and it was before Instagram existed. Yep. So like,
yeah. You know what's crazy too is like, I remember like I'd watch the shows a lot, and this is like when I first started working in the industry too. So like, it was like, you know, the timing.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing your name on some of the shows, like marketing director or whatever. And I was like, oh, it's a weird name. It's like a Chinese name, but then like a American last name. And I was like, interesting, because you never saw like, wasn't like.
So you saw it as Yulin Olliver? Versus Wu.
Yeah. Or maybe that's what it was. Did you switch at some point?
Well, I got married at some point.
Okay. I just remember seeing like an Asian name and being like, oh, strange.
Because we got engaged while we were both still working there.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what it was. I was like, oh, interesting. Like, there's an Asian person there. Because like, for me, like when I first started working in the industry, like pretty much it was like not that diverse. So
no, I mean, honestly, even now, like seeing like Aori skate, it reminds me that there are people who look more like me out there. Absolutely. But I'm just so used to watching either guys skate.
Yeah. Tons of Japanese snowboarders and some Chinese snowboarders coming up. And
like, but I even still like on the snowboarding side, while I was snowboarding, I didn't really see any other Asians.
Now there's like Chloe Kim, who's like
now it's like it's like, I mean, like you once said for your TED Talk, it's like you know, you can't be what you can't see. It's like, it's interesting to see your specific body almost.
Yeah, totally.
Doing it's something because you're like, wait, I just need to tweak that.
Yeah, totally. So then, okay, so you're at Field TV. I met you after you were finished at Field TV and you were like in between.
Yeah.
And like
I was
the
in
way
between
we
for a while.
was, it's so funny because I talk about how I met each person.
Oh, yeah.
And again, it was you sent an email, it was like info@mafia, back then it was mafia.com. Info@mafia, you're like, hi, my name is da-da-da. Like this is like what I've done. And I was like, why is this person who's like super experienced and like probably knows everyone like reaching out to us? It was like so strange.
I believed in what you had created.
I know, it was crazy. I was like, that doesn't make sense, because back then we were still kind of like new and like trying to figure things out. And then we had lunch in LA.
Yeah.
And then from there, you just became our friend, because we didn't really have, we were like running around with our heads cut off. We didn't really know. We didn't have like, oh, I can see you like falling into this position. It's just like, let's just be friends and like go snowboarding together. And like for those years, we would go snowboarding with like Melissa and like a bunch of different, I don't know, athletes and friends. And like we would just, I don't know, go on trips and snowboard. And then,
like a little bit of trivia, we had a mutual friend, Vera.
Yeah, that's right. Vera
was a big part of Mafia, and Vera was actually she was the only female snowboarder in Brian's snowboard film.
Yep.
Which was like filmed on 16 millimeter.
Yeah.
It came out on VHS. No, maybe DVD.
Yeah. Vera's awesome. Shout out to Vera.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we just became friends. And then over the years, I think, and then you were like starting a street league. I remember that happened. So
that was, so that was, years. I mean, folks can probably empathize with this. Like, you know, you give up a lot, or it takes something, right, to like get what's considered your dream job. It occurred to me that I gave up my life as a potential veterinarian that took me 20 years to get into, for finally like culminated as like, I'm at Fuel TV. This is incredible. And Fuel was mostly like surf and skate at the time, being like a SoCal, being based out of SoCal. So what I brought to the table was like snowboarding. So they're like, I actually got to launch their first ever like snowboarding outreach program. Awesome. Partnered with the resorts, started doing social media and digital stuff. It was amazing. So for that to come to an end was like heartbreaking and devastating for me. Because I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I was going to be there for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think we all,
like forever.
Your first company, you're just like stoked.
Yeah, I was like, you want this never to end. And again, like I'm hearing a theme even with how I'm answering, but like family. There still is like Fuel TV family. Still runs really deep. So after leaving there, you kind of have to go through I went through a little process of like grieving my dream job being gone. And like, what on earth do I do? So like, it was kind of scientific about it. My major was biology in college. So there's like a little bit of scientificness, I think, and analyticalness to the way I go about things. I was like, what am I good at? And what do I love? And I was like, I love bridging the gap between like the mainstream and this like culture that I love. Like, could I do that for a brand maybe? Because I've got a foot in each camp, almost like a translator. And I was like, I love working with professional athletes. And after working at Fuel, and I think I worked like 19 dew tours.
Wow.
Because there was like summer and winter back then, it was 8 a year.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm really good at like live events, televised live events. Where would I fit? And then all of a sudden I hear there's this thing called Street League that might be launched, which is televised live events with professional athletes that talks to the mainstream and tries to like, and I was like, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me. And so I like info@Street League.
That's hilarious.
It occurs to me that everything you have to offer is everything that I'm really good at. Is there a place for me there?
Awesome.
So I actually got an interview with Brian Atlas, and I think so. Big Cat was working there part-time, and Charlie was their graphic design guy. He was kind of part-time because he's also working on Rob stuff.
Yeah.
So I think I was like the first full-time employee. After Brian.
And this was like the year before they launched it? It was like
This
startup mode,
was
or did it take a few years?
no. I jumped on maybe a couple months before
Like season one.
season one. So yeah, it was like on us to basically be like, how do we introduce this new concept and brand to the entire world and enroll them in it? Because it's a league.
Yeah.
24 of the top pros in the entire world, and it's like kind of like the NBA where you've got multiple games and it's throughout the summer, and then like culminates at the end with like a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And people were like, "What? What do you mean? They're not going to be able to skate in the Dew Tour or X Games or?"
Yeah, it was like exclusive. But I think wasn't it also
people-
created because there was a need? Like there was just some real issues with some of the existing content. Not issues, but like there was gaps. Like some of the contests that exist, it was like maybe not treating the skateboarders with just their best interest in mind, or it was sort of in the sense that I remember back then it was difficult to make a living. If you got injured, say you like made your living out of contests and you got injured, then you just wouldn't have money that year or whatever, right? So it's kind of fulfilling on that gap as well, right?
I don't know if it was necessarily like that there was anything like it wasn't that there's anything wrong with what was pre-existing, but Rob is he's a businessman, he's an entrepreneur, and he's successful because he's able to identify niches in the marketplace that are not being fulfilled.
Yeah.
So like exactly what you're saying is there's a need.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but like what can I produce to fill that and kill it in this space?
Yeah.
And you know, you sometimes when you think of like professional skateboarders, you don't necessarily realize that it's not just them that you're looking at, but you're looking at their wives and their kids, and that it's the whole they're supporting an entire family, especially in this world that doesn't necessarily have like insurance that can even, you have a job, you have benefits, you have like insurance that covers your entire family if you have a kid, if you break a leg, and then like you have skateboarding where you're very prone to injury, yet like no insurance support and even like a steady paycheck. So
I don't even think that was a conversation for if you like street league pre-contest, like if you were just getting paid through sponsors, like was there ever a conversation for like insurance or like
no, I
don't think so.
No, it's definitely nothing has happened in that space. But my point is that like Rob was like, hey, look, if we want to empower skateboarders, let's create a system where they know that they have another paycheck coming because they have X number of stops a year. And if everyone gets paid, then they can depend on that, and they can raise their families with this. That was a huge initiative on his end. Whether or not he talked about it, I thought that was noble and super honorable.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, so I just remember when you started working there, you literally your office was in the Fantasy Factory. Like I went to go visit you and it was like, here's the Fantasy Factory. I walked in and I was like, oh my God, like you work on the set, not on the set, but like your office was in that warehouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So then from there on out, what was the next step? So Street League evolved I remember going to you invited me to the first
street. It was so cool to see.
Amazing.
Like just going from year 1 to 2. Like year 1, people were like, the hell is this? Like people just want to hate. And then by like year 2, what's that?
People still hate, but I mean, it is like the fact that it's still up and running and successful.
Yeah, it was like 4 years of evolving it. I mean, every year. There was still something new that we were improving on, which was so fun to see. Like I wish I could have been, more strategic. I was kind of along for the ride for a lot of those changes. But at the same time, I was very impressed by them. The first couple were like actually in an empty arena. Like it was just only finals was going to be televised, and it was tape delayed. So we actually had to keep everything under wraps. And we hope that it could still be a surprise 3 weeks later when it hit ESPN too. But and then we realized that like, hey, what about like expanding this? Because you pour this concrete course that's basically like a magic unicorn that you never
Yeah.
see again because it
It's
gets
like
taken
literally
down
there
after
for
3
48
days.
hours. It's
Yeah.
insane. Yeah.
So like, but what about televising the prelims as well as the finals? And like, it just kept getting expanded and went from like 3 a year to 4 a year to let's partner with X Games.
Yeah.
And then go international.
Yeah.
So I think it was like Brazil, Germany, Spain, LA.
Yeah. And then, so how so at that point, like you were friends with us, but you didn't, I mean, there was no women in Street League, and it was still, there was kind of like a dark period for like women skateboarding where there's just no opportunities. It was like around the recession or after. But how did you, like your work in literally like marketing and championing some of the like biggest names in skateboarding, one of the biggest events in skateboarding, how did that then, like, what led you to working with women and girls like in the same community?
Well, it's interesting. I knew nothing about women's skateboarding.
Yeah.
I totally came from like the guy's perspective. My demographic was like a young male.
Yeah.
The brands I represented were very masculine.
Yep.
It did occur to me, I think during maybe my 3rd year at Street League, I was like, we've got all this overhead. Like we're just, we're pouring these amazing, there's all this like cost that goes into putting on this one event.
Yeah.
How can we leverage that since it's already a sunk cost? Like how do we draw some additional value out of it? And maybe let's do something with the girls. So yeah, we started talking about it like year 3 that I was there. And then after a couple of years, Street League was ready.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. But yeah, I experienced even like a learning curve myself, hanging out with you and Mimi and Lisa. It was awesome because I would be like, but like I would say all the things that a lot of guys still kind of say today, which is like generous, like you want to support girls, but at the same time, there's a gap in like what would be best for women skateboarding.
Yeah.
So I remember Mimi and you guys once saying to me, because I'd be like, wait, but that's a great opportunity. Why don't you guys just do it? Or whatever. I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And like, and I'm like, why don't we talk about like how underserved female skateboarding is, that like a man could be driving around in a Mercedes, and then like the equivalent of like the top female in the world is like, maybe is like trying to figure out where their next meal is going to come.
Like food stamps. Yeah.
Yeah. Like totally different. And then I remember you guys were like, it's not a charity case. That's not the story that's to be told.
Yeah.
What's to be told is that we focus on women skateboarding for what's amazing about it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't get it. And I hear it from the community still like, sometimes like, oh, why didn't the girls take that opportunity? Like we wanted to give you a leg up or something. Or how would you describe it? I almost don't know how to describe it, but
yeah, I mean, I would say that at one point,
like I shifted the way I was thinking.
From anyone from the outside, they might come in and be in. It comes from a good place because that's how we were. It was this is unfair. Like I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah,
and like that's also, I think, from anyone at any point, that's like, but for Lisa and Mimi, who literally grew up inside, like Lisa was literally one of the first, I think, like female skaters in LA or sponsored or whatever. I'm probably getting, the exact details wrong, but Lisa was in it, right? Core skateboarding in the 90s.
Yeah.
And same with Mimi, on the transition side. But when you're in it, like it's you have a different view. And then for me, coming in, again, not growing up inside skateboarding, but my first job was in this like core skate industry. And this was like in 2006. Your initial thought, and we still see this today, is like, oh, it's so unfair. I can't believe that's happening. Like, let's raise our voices about it, which is good because that gets awareness out.
Yeah, and that's almost step 1. It's like everyone has to experience that before they evolve to the next emotion, which is,
if you stay there of like, I can't believe this is happening, arms up in the air, then you're just always there. But you have to start creating. So that's what started happening in that time period where Lisa created Meow Skateboards, Mimi and CB, co-founded Hoopla, and like all these things were happening where we're like, okay, now we're moving the conversation forward. And like, it's not just like, oh, we're so mad. It was like, all right, what can we do?
Yeah,
Because I don't think anything's going to change until we do something about that, you know?
Yeah. And even now, like as an agent, oh, Ponka came to say hi. Yeah, even as an agent, if I get like maybe someone wants to like interview one of the athletes or something, and if they for some reason want to focus on like how has life been shitty to you?
Yeah.
I almost get fired up now because we are at further down the conversation now, where at first we were like acknowledging that there was a discrepancy, and now it's like, what actually, we don't need to be angry about it, let's just focus on what we can do. And so when I get these questions, I'm a little bit like,
yeah,
fuck the charity story. It's not the charity story anymore.
Yeah.
It's about she's a fucking amazing skateboarder.
Yeah.
Like, how about that?
Yeah.
How about just that?
Yeah. It's exciting to move past that time where it was like just whatever, anger and like defense mode. And I also think it boils down to, if you just look at it, because many of these aspects, it is just business, it's capitalism. Like, you need consumers, you need participants. There weren't as many girls skating, and now that's changed because of the internet, because of cultural shifts and what's like possible for young girls. So now that we have people participating who, like, girls are naturally going to maybe levitate towards buying product for women, then it starts to change everything. So a lot of it just came from, we need to get on that ground level of like rising participation. And then it is chicken or the egg, right? Because it's like, if X Games doesn't televise a women's skate contest, then that's girls that maybe are watching X Games and they only see men skating and they're like, oh, like, I don't think that's for me.
Yeah, actually, while I was working at Street League, I think it was in Kansas City, I partnered with like an ad agency in each region. And the lady, Jo Marie, she was amazing. And at one point she was like, oh, I didn't realize girls skateboarded. And it was the year that we were like working with X Games. So there was like a women's division basically. So yeah, even people that we work with, they didn't know. But to your question, like what was it that I brought almost from like the men's side? What did I bring to women's skateboarding in Yunexis? I think I brought like an entrepreneurial mindset. And like you were mentioning, the business side of things.
Totally.
So what I'm noticing is if you're an athlete and you spend years like trying to make it as a pro, like there are all these steps that like a skateboarder's gotta take to get noticed by the industry. But at the same time, once sponsors start to want to partner with you, I encourage my clients to think of it as a business partnership. Like for a while you're like, oh, I want to be sponsored, I want to get sponsored, like, but what I'm hearing in that is like an acknowledgement that you're good enough. And once you kind of get that acknowledgement, it's about like, all right, if someone's going to put some money, like if you're going to buy something, you get something in response or in exchange. And bare bones, that's kind of the transaction. Like if a sponsor, what does the sponsor want out of this partnership? And I like to make sure that the clients are really present to what they can bring to benefit this partnership in exchange for whatever they're getting in return, whether it's marketing or financial dollars. It is an exchange. So yes, that acknowledgement is still there, that you've are at a certain point where you can provide value to these companies. But it is a business transaction, and it can be awesome. And like, it's okay to talk about money.
Exactly. And being on the other side of it, like when I first started at Cyrus Shoes, it was a bummer. Like, I'd meet really rad, athletes and skaters or whoever, and I'd send shoes, and then like I wouldn't hear from them for like 5 months. And I'm like, well, shoot, like that sucks, because it's like I don't even know. Maybe their shoes ended up in the garbage. Like, who knows?
And did you sell an extra shoe because you gave that person a shoe?
Exactly. Because then I had to go and show that this was worth even like having a budget to like sponsor girls or whatever. And like, I didn't have anything to show for it. So it was like, that's like a real, but okay, cool. So that kind of brings us to like present day. And, I guess my question for you is like, and you kind of touched on this already, but like, what is your definition of an agent? Like, what is, for those of you who don't know, like, and like, I want to share, because it's kind of a new thing, for the women's side of skateboarding is very new, and even for action sports in general, like in the 80s and 90s, like people didn't have agents, but you know, like what does it mean to you? Like what is your role? Like what is your purpose when it comes to representing? And right now, Yunexis's current clients are Lacey Baker, Vanessa Torres, Samarria Brevard, Mariah Duran, Jenn Soto, Savannah Headden,
Dani Burt,
Dani Burt,
and Nicole Hause.
and Nicole. Yeah. So, but yeah. So tell me about like what does that mean to you? Like when when you say, you know, this is what I do. Like,
yeah. You know, I think I actually had some great experiences leading up to it. You know, my only experience of what an agent was interning with Cersei Wallace, and absolutely changed my life. Because I see what she does, and how passionately she advocates, and why she got into this was advocacy.
Yeah.
And being able to make a difference for her clients, where she had the first pro model snowboard boot in the industry. Like she gets it from the athlete side.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's the only reason to get into it. I think agent should be, so not the word agent should be synonymous with the word advocate. And yeah, aside from seeing why Cersei did things, and how authentic and genuine she is about it, and also how people reacted or perceive her or perceived her, it was a real like dichotomy. I mean, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
But I also was kind of creating being an agent out of nothing, because although I had you know, I was inspired by her, and still am.
Shout out to Cersei.
Love you. I also had the opportunity to be like, what the hell am I doing? What the hell does this mean? Like, what does this need to look like? And so I just said, you know, regardless of what agents are supposed to look like, I'm going to create this out of nothing.
Yeah.
Which means, as my clients started to come to me, I don't recruit. So as the clients started coming to me and saying, you know, I think I could use some support. And, you know, you've done whatever you did at Fuel TV and at Street League. I see something in that in you that could benefit my career. So I would just sit down and I'd say, okay, well, end like of your career. Let's,
Standing in the future.
Yeah. I would say, if I were to wave a magic wand, who are all your sponsors right now? And what's your life look like? And I might hear, oh, I don't have to work during the day to support myself. So so I can skate full time.
Yeah.
Or the X, Y, and Z, these would be my favorite sponsors if we could just wave a magic wand and like snap, it happens.
Yeah.
So that's actually where we started, was with that type of list. And then yeah, we kind of just like take it as, I don't know, like maybe there's like no real specific route for like everyone's a journey is really different.
It's like a blank canvas. Like
it kind of is
literally anything you want it to be.
It is. And it's been interesting because like Lacey, for example, she had previous sponsors. She'd been riding for like at least 10 years, right? So it was about using those old contacts and just creating a new relationship with them, even like shifting like, hey, you know me as this, but what about interacting with me in this different role?
Yeah, which is so hard to do when it's just yourself, like trying to advocate for yourself. You're like, hey, you know, it's like going into a company as an intern. It's like, hey, like I would love to be a manager now, and they're like, you're just an intern. So like in some ways, it's just when someone else says, yo, like this intern's been working really hard, like we should probably promote them. Then the CEO's like, all right, let's consider it. Or you just go to a different company and like get promoted, you know?
Yeah. So, I'm seeing like a huge benefit for both parties. The brand, excuse me, if there's like, you know, brands are businesses.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So if they like, they usually have a really specific vision of what they're looking for. And it's big picture. And then athletes are just a small slice of like that marketing vehicle. and they know exactly which athlete or what type of athlete, would maximize their marketing dollars. So if you're maybe presenting an athlete who doesn't fit that, it actually, having an agent there actually facilitates the conversation, because you can have a constructive conversation with your client on like maybe where it's not a good fit. And like maybe the brand doesn't have to say some of these things direct. So I've seen it be pretty beneficial.
It's like a communication facilitator as well. I think that's part of it, because and I think like I remember Lacey, before you started working with her, like I was talking to her on the phone and she was just so frustrated. She was like, I wish I could just like get a plane ticket, because I'm like struggling to even like figure out how to like get myself to Norway or whatever it was.
And I hadn't even really talked to her before we partnered together. I don't think.
And it was just a struggle, because I don't understand why. Like at the time, it was like she's like writing flow for Van. She's like, hey, don't get why. Like it's so difficult, and she's just like she's just so beat down and like years of like the same thing. And I was like, you should talk to Yulin, because at that point you had organically been like advocating for me through Mafia, and like that's when you're also, we created WSA, and you're basically essentially doing those same things for Mimi and myself within like a company context. And essentially Yunexis, I think I was like thinking, like if I had to remember it, I was like, Yulin has to do this. Like I was like, you're naturally an advocate for everyone. That just makes sense.
Homeless dogs, pit bulls,
horses,
wild horses.
It just makes sense to take that into a role where you can create a business and sustain that, as opposed to just like helping or consulting, which that's part of it, but that was like the perfect role. And I think again, bringing in, it was almost like we talked about the like almost shock of like, how is this even a thing for men but not for women? But then bringing in the knowledge of what is happening in the men's industry was like huge, because we had all been on the women's side for so long.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And when you're like, it was like, this is a standard for men, we're like, that's great.
Yeah, it was like a year of like, wait, you just did what for free? Like we had so many of those conversations that you're just like, no, don't do that for free, and please tell everyone else not to do it for free, because like if like they're able to find other girls to fill a niche, that like then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, why would we pay you if like everyone else would do it for free?
And it was hard for us to like figure that on our own, but when you were like, this is what the standard in the industry is, we're like, oh, okay, well we definitely, like it helped, you brought that experience, that knowledge, and
it was like we were contributing. It was like we were contributing to devaluing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually I do want to talk about that. That's one of my questions. So like let's talk about the gap when it comes to companies not paying for the same things for women, and then also when women are just like, well, this is the best we can get, so all right, we'll just do it because we don't have a choice, like being backed up against the wall. Like what is the impact on that, when whether it comes to like a woman working in the industry or a skater just like blasting, wearing their logo and everything for just product? Like let's talk about, I'm curious to share what it is that happens. Like what's the impact on that?
I'm kind of, I mean, you were kind of mentioning like just a discrepancy. I mean, there's a lot to say about it, but at the same time, like I come from the perspective that these brands are businesses. So, and it's not just like, it's not having to enroll your department head or whoever is in charge of the budget, that this marketing, that this spend is valuable and will affect the bottom line. Like that's not only isolated to like the women's conversation, women's skateboarding. That's like any project you want to do, you have to enroll, right? And like get the money for it. Exactly. So I would say that if the impact that a woman has on your marketing initiative, if it's the same as with what a man could do, then then you pay the same. but yeah, I think right now that's where I kind of see the discrepancy.
Mm-hmm.
Is just how big of an impact is this specific person going to have on your campaign.
Got it. So it's like less about gender and like, this person should get this because we say they should, but more about like, let's look at the numbers. Like
the numbers always make sense.
How do we, does this person sell a lot of product?
The numbers always make sense.
Yeah.
I'd like, it's just be scientific and analytical about it. I mean, yeah, like it's not like a gift.
Yeah.
Like the check you get isn't a gift.
Yeah.
It's an exchange for services.
Yeah. And I think it does boil down to the one of the
But that's me. That's just me.
Well, I agree. And it boils down to the conversation of like, people are like, this person should get this because they can do these tricks, and this person should get this because they're just whatever, like they got this, contest result. And it's like, I talked to Zora about this and I was like, actually, no, like it boils down to like the person you're being. Like there's someone who could not get on a podium in a contest and be everyone's favorite skater. And like, as a result, like I'm going to buy her board or like buy her shoes or whatever. So it is more than just, people think that everyone should just get, there's some like perfect calculated formula, black and white, but really it's actually no, like,
well, as an entrepreneur, like every dollar counts as an entrepreneur. Like I've worked at startups, like all of Fuel TV was a startup. Streetly was a startup. Yunexis is a startup. Mafia is a startup. WSA is are all startups. Every dollar counts. And so it's got to make sense. And yeah, what I'm hearing is at like athletes to a point, because you're like getting flow for a while, like based on your, it's like an approval thing. In a sense,
Totally.
And then it switches to like to the business side of things a little bit.
It's like when you get a job, even if like you go to work at Nike, there's like a provisional, for a lot of people it's like a provisional 3-month like period, and then
I see
at the end they either bring you in full time or they're like, didn't work out.
Or like that. But to your the other part of your question, okay, so I hate to like compare our bodies to like a NASCAR. But like we have 2 feet and 1 head, 1 torso, like we, it's, I mean, and I, for some reason, like in my head, I almost relate it to like virginity a little bit. Like you can give stuff away, but then once you give it away, it's gone. Like if you have if there's a marketing opportunity for a brand, say you're going to be on television, and they're, you're one of the top 8 skateboarders in the entire world, like others of you in existence, like you're very rare, you're very unique, which means that you have leverage. You can like sell what it is that you have to offer. And if there's only 8 t-shirt spots on this telecast, they should be paid for. Or you can give it away for free and get nothing. It's up to you. But there is an opportunity there. There's no wrong or right way to do it, but there is one way that's more workable for your like long-term goal of not having to work, maybe, like, because that's financial contribution to your end goal.
And I think that's also like, working with younger girls and seeing, when there wasn't a lot of opportunity, it was like, part of it is like, you feel that when someone gives you something, you're like, oh, like I want to be grateful and be like,
and you can be grateful. Like I think you should be grateful,
but not
at the same time, not instead of
the same.
In addition to,
it's like something separate and different. There's different ways to like be grateful. So in that partnership, and like I think a common misconception is like a sticker on our board or like a logo on a T-shirt is actually like the top, value. So if you start doing that at the very beginning when you're just getting free product, like there's nothing more to give away. So I think that's part of it too. I see a lot of younger girls that are just like, yeah, this person's like sending me shoes. Let me put a huge sticker on my board, and then like go on TV. And then it's like, everyone just assumes like, oh, they must be,
And like that perception might help a little bit if you're not being totally transparent with your other potential sponsors. Like say you want to sponsor someone who has like 6 other sponsors already, because in a sense, someone else is already like approved of this person. So from a flow perspective, for a certain stage in your career, yeah, it's helpful to be associated and aligned with a bunch of brands who have like approved of you, of your skill set, and like your marketability. I get it. It's like appropriate for a certain stage.
Yes. But then at some point it's like you got to break past that barrier of just being
you switch gears. It's like a total it doesn't happen all at once, and it takes some conversations and like a little bit of trust, because you're like, I've done it this way for my entire life and it's gotten me here.
And I think also like it helps to have other people to bounce that off of, like whether it's an agent or like a team manager or whatever, just people who have like the industry knowledge to be like, all right, well, you should consider maybe this is the time to switch gears, or consider doing certain things or not doing certain things.
You know, one thing I'd love to leave folks with, and not that we have to end right now, but they're part of that switch is that what I've noticed is like during that stage, people are getting flow, and it's almost like a delicate stage where you don't really want to rock the boat. You know, like things are getting good according to like how you're measuring success. And I want to like impart on folks that like one of the communication tools that I've learned is that you can make requests. Like I didn't even really know that term even a couple of years ago. And it would occur to me that like if I made a request, it might rock the boat, even just asking a question. But I realized if I'm like tiptoeing around someone, I'm actually inadvertently saying that person's too delicate to say no to me. That person doesn't have the balls to like say yes and no powerfully. So I'm actually seeing them as weak.
You're diminishing them, their power, their ability to just say no.
And it's maybe because I had trouble saying no.
For sure.
But now I'm like, wait, if saying yes and saying no, or saying no, but how about this? If like all of those are equally good, like equally fine, then like, sure, I feel totally free to make a request. Cause I know that I'm not going to make that person feel bad for saying no. Like I'm open to them saying no. If they would like, just as open as if they said yes. So that's one thing that I would love to share, because that's been a huge tool. Like if I were afraid to make a request for any of my clients, like where would we be? But if I make it where I make it okay for anyone to say no to me and yes, that's actually the first stepping stone to building something amazing.
Well, that opens the door to like anything is possible, because you're actually giving the opportunities for the door to be open and then to walk through it, as opposed to if you don't ask, the door is just shut always, you know, like you're keeping the door shut. So it's like someone at the door. So the big takeaway is that when you make a request, someone can accept, decline, or counter, and like
and so can I.
Exactly.
So like feel free to ask me things, because I'll let you know if it's not workable. And I still love you. You know what I mean? Like totally. All still good.
I think that's such a common like missed opportunity, is that we make it feel like, okay, we can't ask because they're going to think I'm this,
or like, it'll ruin everything.
Exactly.
But I think the more, if we let people know that it's okay to decline, we don't have to say that, you know, but even in your mind, if you're like, it's totally okay if they say no. And I'm going to ask if maybe some photo shoot is scheduled for like my like parents' 50th anniversary dinner, and I don't want to rock the boat or something. But honestly, what if they don't even give a shit? Like what? They don't care what day it's on. They just like pick the freaking day. Like what if that were actually the case? And they're like, oh yeah, actually, what if we moved it up or back by a week? It'd be better for us. And you'd be like, oh my God, that would be so much better for me too. Then it's a win-win. Like anything is possible. And oftentimes that happens, but we shut it down.
Shut the door before we even like try. We shut it on ourselves. It's not someone else shutting the door on us. So I think that's like a huge value. So awesome. All right. So the takeaway is just ask, like be in communication, like make a request. And if someone says no, it's okay. And we've talked about this on other episodes. When like people reach out to me, like if you don't get an answer, or I'll reach out to someone, if I don't get an answer, I don't make it mean like, oh, the person hates me, I just say like, okay, then answer. Like maybe I'll email again, maybe I'll call them, maybe I'll text them, maybe I'll wait a year and email them again. Like it doesn't, if you don't keep trying, it's literally just like skateboarding. Like if you don't practice, if you don't make an attempt to learn to ollie or kickflip or whatever, like you're definitely never going to do it. So you got to keep continuing like trying. And that's all it is when it comes to like, oh, I'm not getting paid right now, but maybe I can ask. And like, if they say no, it's okay. Like, okay, what else can I do to like, you know, make that happen someday?
Because actually one of the benefits of asking and talking straight is that the other party feels really heard.
Yeah.
And you've suddenly become even more aligned on like what actually needs to happen versus like just trying to imagine what needs to happen. Like maybe they're like, you know what, I really just need you to XYZ before you can be considered whatever or something. You're like, wait, that's so doable versus like whatever I was imagining I would have to be for you.
Yeah. And it's like from the sponsor's perspective or whatever the company's perspective, like that's a powerful move to be like, wow, this person is asking, like they're self-generating, they're making it happen on their own. They're not waiting for someone to like give them something, you know? So I think that's really awesome. All right, so thanks guys for hanging out with us. We are going to open it up for some Q&As in a little bit, so get your questions ready if you have any. If you just joined in, I'm here with Yulin, and we're just talking about everything, the skate industry, you know, what it takes to be a sponsored skateboarder, make a career out of skateboarding. And I want to talk a little bit about WSA, the Women's Skateboarding Alliance, and how that happened, and you know what it is that we're doing when it comes to this, you know, company that essentially we formed, and just why it's important. And I think it, you know, falls into the umbrella of the conversation when it comes to advocating and like making requests and saying no to things. But yeah, what was your role in WSA?
Well, it's funny, you're talking about advocacy, and I was thinking back, I was like, you know what? Even when I was at Fuel TV, I felt like I was advocating, and at Street League too. Like, and that might have been like maybe that wasn't a great fit, or maybe it worked for a little while. But yeah, I remember
your role wasn't to advocate, and you were advocating.
Well, like marketing and advocacy are like, there is some overlap, you know, but they're also not the same.
I agree.
So like, but yeah, I remember being like, not enough people know about Fuel TV, not enough people are snowboarding. And same at like Street League. I was like, not enough people like know about Street League. Like, we got to grow this or whatever. But anyways, so back to your question about WSA. WSA is pretty historic. You know, the main our main leader in this space is Mimi, and you know, not everyone knows. She's pretty understated sometimes. And humble, but
Mimi's killing it softly always.
I
We're
mean,
like the vocalizers.
And
Mimi's just killing it.
I mean, we
like more quietly.
We kind of all met when we started talking about like if we could spur Street League to like start thinking about women's skateboarding, what could it potentially look like? And that was like in 2013.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. It was when we walked into Fantasy Factory. We were like, that's right. Cool, let's have this conversation.
Yeah, that was really great. You know, even just also to be in the room with and have Rob's ear. And yeah, just talk about something really important. For all
he was
skateboarding.
Like super open and engaged. I was like really impressed.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was a highlight for me. In my career, I think, having that meeting. So thanks for to you and Mimi and Lisa for helping make that happen. So the other huge highlight, like while I was talking to Mimi, while we were all talking, I was like, whoa, I was like, Mimi's pretty freaking legit. I was like, she's not only is an athlete, but has been putting on all of women's skate at every X Games for like, 14 years or something?
A long time.
Or something.
10 years.
Something
insane. Well, she was skating in it first, and then.
There's like some insane number. Like basically, we don't know women's skateboarding without, all women skateboarding at X Games is actually Mimi's women skateboarding at X Games.
And Lisa
and
and
Lisa.
like the Alliance board, but
Yeah.
it's so much work. People do not understand how much work that is, and it'll never be like understood by until you do it.
I tried to like apply like a business sort of overlay to it. I was like, can you estimate the number of hours you work on an event for me?
Yeah.
And it was just, and I get it now. It's kind of like just all the time.
Yeah.
Which is why it was hard to like categorize,
Quantify,
quantify that way. But I was like, yeah, not only is she putting on all these contests for X Games, but she was actually able to quietly cause prize purse equality to roll out across all of winter, summer, all sports X Games.
Yeah.
Just because she stood for that for women's skateboarding one year.
Yeah.
And
they're CB.
Yeah. And they're like, I mean, X Games is like Disney, ABC, like they can't just do something like little, you know, it has to affect everything equally. So that was huge. And then we started talking about how, wait, this is scalable, you know, what's happening here can actually grow, and we could provide the service of like authenticity and accuracy to other televised international contests.
Yeah.
And that's how WSA came about.
And our first client was Street League. Technically.
Maybe. Sort of. I don't know.
I guess there was already some of the work she was doing, and then
I think everything.
That was like one of the bigger initial projects. That was like a huge. I just remember going to Street League in Chicago, and I was like, "This is amazing."
Yeah,
like this is history in the making.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, maybe I don't know. I don't think it was necessarily one of the first for WSA, but it was historic, and it was the first for Street League.
Yeah,
which is huge.
Yeah. Shout out to Mimi. You're gonna come on the show soon. I know you are. Okay, cool. So let's see. I guess we talked a little bit about and I guess it's already 9:15. That's great. Mm-hmm. So we'll just do a few more questions. And if you guys have questions, you can go ahead and ask them in the chat in the side, and we'll get to them. Mm-hmm. Recent wins. Like I want to hear about. So Lacey signed with you, and at the time she was actually still working her graphic design job. She had a full-time office job. Mm-hmm. And then in a pretty short period after the deal with Nike happened. So I wanted to learn more about that, or share with me like that was a huge win. That was like historic moment in skateboarding, women's skateboarding, like obviously Lacey's life, like to get to actually become a professional skateboarder. I mean, she was already a professional skateboarder, but to make a living, to be able to leave her day job and just skate full time and like be out skating every day. Mm-hmm. Like that was huge.
I think it really was. I mean, it was a couple things. It was like suddenly being intentional about what we wanted to create.
Yeah.
And it's also timing. Like what I'm noticing is that the athletes like need to like meet me halfway, at least.
Yeah.
I'm a facilitator. Like I empower, but also like you got to put in the work.
You're not going to hold their hand and drag them through the mud.
Well, like what's there to promote if there's nothing to promote?
Yeah.
I don't know. So like Lacey was skating super hard, like determined, unstoppable with her skating.
Yeah.
And she also was putting the time to foster her online fan base.
Yep.
And so she had one who was her fan base is loyal and engaged, and that's a value to brands. And her skill set, I mean, she's one of the best skateboarders in the world. You know, she got there herself. So those are all things that the athlete does on their own.
Yep.
She won Street League.
Yeah.
Like and the culmination of all of that together creates a package that I can present to people to see if they might be enrolled in partnering with this. Can you create anything with what we've got going on here?
Yeah.
How's that look to you based on what you're creating on your side as a brand?
Yeah.
And that's basically the conversation. We were just intentional about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was that like for you? Because that was like probably a pivotal moment for Yunexis. Like you just created this athlete. You got your agent's license. I remember you're like, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, yay.
Well, it's kind of like not knowing not having any shoulds, like not
just being open.
Yeah, like I didn't really know, I didn't really have a vision, and I didn't want a vision of what an agent should be.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of freedom in that.
Yeah.
And I just focused on the client. I said, what's your dream life? What's your dream career look like? Yeah. And it's not just like your career. It's like maybe I want to move. Maybe I live with my parents and I want to move out.
Yeah.
Maybe I wish I had a car. Like maybe I don't want to have to work my daytime job. Like whatever your measures of success are, let's list those out and then let's unfold those backwards. Like what things need to happen for you to have this?
Yeah.
And then that was it. So I'm basically just like, what do you want?
Yeah.
What actions can we take for that? And then we kind of made it a game.
Yeah.
And we still do that. Like that's the name of the game. So there's no shoulds. There's no way it's supposed to look. It's like,
it's an opportunity to play.
I don't know.
Like,
yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, you make it sound so easy, but okay, let's also talk about the fact that you had a child while all of this was
I knew I was gonna.
So like, how many months, just the initial conversation to like the deal, and then just going from, like it happening, and then also you got pregnant and you literally had a baby. That whole
I think Lacey and I was probably a couple months pregnant when Lacey and I started working together. So yeah, working on outreach and creating what's possible with different folks during the pregnancy. And let's see, I gave birth at the end of February. And that's about, I think, when we announced her partnership with Nike. And I really wanted it to be like, I wanted it to make a big splash. So I knew Nike was going to like do their marketing outreach or rollout. But I started talking to someone at Vogue and someone at Rolling Stone, and was able to enroll them in breaking the story. And usually, like, that's like a big, that's valuable for a magazine to like be able to break a story. But it took something to having to break it in a way that they didn't step on each other's toes. And then like also follow Nike's lead and like not step on their toes and just like amplify what they're gonna do. And so it took a lot of coordination while I was like basically giving birth. It was like the same month I'm thinking about. It's like the same couple weeks. And there was a lot of follow-up too. And like the dates changed, or like we had to even nail down like the exact like minute that things were going to drop so that things didn't get blown. Like, like you need it all to fall at the same time, like one after the other. And like, well, if so-and-so's going to break the story, like what are we doing? And like, so creating so that everyone felt like they had something unique. It was really exhilarating to like see it all happen. And I was just like, oh, we should do that. Let's do that. But even now, like a year later, those like Vogue and Rolling Stone pieces are still being cited. Like they're being talked about still.
Absolutely.
And like there were folks even at Nike who saw that and was like, can we do something with her too? So she's like expanded out of SB. As a result. And like we flew up to Portland, and Lacey spoke. She was like almost like a keynote speaker person. She talked to like the head of all of Nike design in front of their 500 designers, all their design, not just like SB people. And like, and those articles were up on the screen again.
So
like
awesome.
It was amazing. It was exhilarating. And yes, the baby was like, sleeping and eating every 3 hours. So like a lot of times you're bonding, you're holding her, and sometimes you don't want to wake her. And like, I would reach for my phone and just see if, and I did an out of office. I was like, basically, you're not going to hear from me for like 2 months or something, or like something pretty long. And I created a team around me so that like, people would still, someone would be responding, of course.
Yeah.
But I would look at it just for fun. And sometimes I'd be like, I'll just let them know this. So I was like emailing a little bit here and there, but not because I had to, only because I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, even though the announcement, the Nike like Lacey announcement was like a day, there was a lot to do for like a couple months even after.
Yeah. Awesome. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. It's super inspiring because not only is just one of those things a lot, you know, when it comes to actions to take and time and energy, but both of those things together and just the way I remember when it happened and like talking to you about it.
What, the birth or Nike?
Both. And it was like, you never were stressed about it. I mean, I'm sure there's moments where like things were hard, but it was all like your attitude and your perspective.
Well, I created it. I was like, I created it before it happened. So I was intentional, and I knew that you needed like a team around you for it all to happen. Yeah. Like I didn't force myself to do everything myself. And I was like, what do I need? So maybe even just having family around to help, I don't know, keep the house clean, or like, I think, you know what it is? I had Chinese postpartum food delivery for like a month. That was an amazing gift. Yeah. So that alleviated something. Yeah. And again, like bringing Cersei up again, I was inspired to do a home birth. Yeah. So I had to unfold that backwards as well. Meaning you have to have like appointments with your midwife. I come from action sports and like even traditional sports. Like, so coaches are cool to me. So I had like a birthing coach called the doula. Yeah. And I met with her like every so often, and then everyone showed up on the day, and we actually had the baby at home. So and awesome. But my game didn't end there. I actually envisioned that I was able to work the first ever Minneapolis, Minnesota X Games. Yep. Which was 3 months after the birth. Mm-hmm. And what that looked like was my in-laws flying in from Houston and hanging out with Bexley and me and Brian at the hotel. Yeah. And we had to do like we did a practice flight. Yeah. That was like a 45-minute flight before, so that we weren't stressed out about flying to Minneapolis from here.
So given that there's all these like amazing things you're able to accomplish like all at the same time too, like I know it's not all perfect, and that's something that like I want to like share that with the different guests I've had and my friends and for myself too, is that it isn't always perfect, and it's not just like, oh, she's Superwoman, she could do it. Mm-hmm. So I want to quickly talk about like in those moments where you do have a breakdown or something isn't working, like
where you don't feel graceful. You're like, I am not graceful right now.
Plenty of that. Like, what do you do? Because that happens, right? And like, what do you do to get, so like, first let's talk about that, because let's just share that not everything's perfect all the time, but it's like what I've seen for you is you're intentionally like aware of that. And it's not that you're trying to put on this perfect thing. It's that in those moments, like you have a little trick tip, and we've talked about this on other episodes too, is to get out of that. So like for you, what is it? Like when you're like, you know, we've talked about like insecurities or frustrations or just being triggered. Like, what do you do to?
It's kind of fun to like, figure out your own flavor of insecurity. Because what I found is that it plays like a broken record. Yeah. Your flavor just keeps coming up. Yeah. And then you get to decide, okay, is this just like the broken record playing again, or is this legitimate? And like, my form of insecurity is probably like I'm not wanted or something. Like I'm not wanted in the world's like not fair. Yeah. Like things are not fair. Yeah. Which would make sense looking back at like why the need to advocate. Yeah. Like why am I advocating everywhere? Yeah. If I didn't think the world was like, you know. Exactly. So yeah, in terms of being intentional, like I get to ask myself, oh, am I like super pissed off right now because something doesn't seem fair? Yeah. And then I'm like, yep, it's that again.
Yeah. And then it's like the identification of, oh, it just seems unfair versus like, it may be fair. I don't know. But it's like you're identifying like that voice that you're telling yourself, like,
Yeah.
that you always the broken record, which may or may not be true, but it's like you can choose to operate from the broken record or just be like, okay,
and from
I'm
there,
gonna make something from here on.
Yeah, from there, like, what do I want this to actually look like?
Yeah.
What's my intention around it? And honestly, like a big one is just bringing generosity.
Yeah.
I
Compassion,
because
generosity.
Like when I was at Fuel, I remember I was there's this like picture someone had taken of me and Jeremy Rogers. Like we were getting into an elevator and there's like a big security guard guy who was like saying, "There's no more room in the elevator," and Jeremy was like, "I'm getting in the elevator." And so like, and apparently it's like me, like protecting Jeremy Rogers by holding this guy's arm. Anyways, I don't know why I thought he needed protection, but so there's this picture up on the wall with the word pitbull. So like I get it. I do have like I do have like a bit of a temper, you know, like I have some feistiness. I get it. And so for like those of us who don't always see ourselves in our most graceful way, I think generosity is huge because then I find myself wanting to make myself wrong for like not handling that in a way that I would have liked. And then I get even more mad. But yeah, so I'm like, you know what if I just bring generosity to myself?
Awesome.
And I'm like, shit, fine. I'll be generous. You're no longer an asshole.
That's awesome. Cool. Let's see. Do you guys have any questions? I don't see any questions so far. Wait, actually, there are some questions. Oh, there's a lot of questions.
We're great listeners, Kim. Yes, Fuel. That's funny.
Stephanie asks, "Hello from Boston. Might be
from Boston. So far.
Yeah, Stephanie is one of our friends. What advice would you give to someone who wants to do what you're doing, and what first steps do you suggest?"
It's funny because I want to come at that with a question.
Sure.
No, I don't know. Like, what is I'd be curious. Like, what have you been doing with your life right now? Like, where are you at? You know, like, what's your skill set? Yeah.
All right, Stephanie,
I don't know.
That's your question.
I don't know.
Stephanie started
New
England Female Skate Crew,
okay.
Which is basically a community for female skaters out in Boston in that area, because she reached out and she was like, I have no one to skate with. Like, should I move to California? And I was like, actually, you don't have to. Like, I would create something where you're at.
Yeah. Okay.
And go from there. And so that's what she's been doing. They just put on an event. They've had a few contests, and so she's really creating a community. So, so for Stephanie, yeah, I would say that just what you're already doing is great. To create your own value, it starts with that. And like, you know, from there on out, you know, really identify what are the areas you like. Do you like putting on events, or are you more interested in like making product? Like you guys have been making t-shirts and stickers, or are you really stoked on working with skaters directly? So there's a lot of different, I think, routes to take, but I think it really comes from trying everything first. Like,
yeah, I think it helps to like identify what you're really good at. Like, what can you bring to the table? Like when I'm working with the athletes, I'm like, oh, you know what? If she just did A, B, and C, and D, E, and F, she'd be there. And then I realized, oh, she doesn't have the resources to do that stuff. She doesn't have maybe the contact, or she might not know exactly how to position it in a way that I wish she would position it. So why don't I step in? Yeah. So that's kind of how it evolved for me, is looking to see, what do I love doing? You remember when I was like, when I found Street League, I did that assessment. I was like, what did they need? And what do I offer that no one else can offer, or most people don't offer? And what makes me really happy? Yeah. And I kind of took that route.
Yeah. I would definitely identify what makes you really happy, because it's easy to just go into like, I have to do this, and then be like, wait, why am I even doing this? You know? So like really making sure you're present to like why you're doing something, because that feeling, if it makes you happy, it will continue to make you happy. And if it doesn't, you can always switch out, but like first figure that out, and then keep asking yourself, like, does this make me happy? Like, do I feel happy when I'm doing these things?
And like when it comes to happiness, I think there are a couple like factors in creating happiness. One of them is communication. So you're like not alone. And another is actually contribution. And then a third factor is like personal growth. So if you kind of have all three of those things, usually you can create happiness. And honestly, like I was pretty stuck when I was at Fuel. That transition to Street League was not graceful. It was like at least a year. And I was mad. I was like angry. A lot of the time I was not being generous. And I actually ended up taking this communications course called Landmark Forum that actually shifted gears for me completely. So like who I am today is because I chose to take that course and take some accountability for my future.
And then Yulin generously shared that with me, and I was like, "What is this? I don't want to do this." And then I was like, "No, that looks stupid." And then you're like, "Hey," and then you waited some time, and you're like, "Hey, like, would you be like? I think it could make a difference." And I was like, "All right, fine." Like,
well, Kim was already doing so much amazing stuff, like groundbreaking stuff, and like we kind of hovered like in that for like a couple years, and like and I didn't see anything wrong with Kim. I was just like, what?
Something was missing. I felt like something was missing.
I didn't really necessarily think anything was missing, but I was like, what would Kim look like on steroids?
Yeah, you were literally like, here's
Kim
fuel
on steroids might be freaking holy crap. What would that even look like? I don't even know. And she doesn't even know. No one would know. So anyways, then
you did invite, you were like, this is rocket fuel for your fry. And I was like, okay, I could use that. And then honestly, for me, what was missing was I just wasn't stoked anymore. Like we're about to go to Oslo X Games, and I was like, ugh, I don't want to go. I'm so tired. Like, what's the point? Like, there was a lot of things that I was like,
and you were doing everything yourself.
Yeah, I was doing everything myself. I was like, I can't do this. I'm tired. What's the point? I wasn't even skating. Like, and so Yulin invited me to do the course, and I did the course, and I actually went on to do the communications course, and then there's an entrepreneurial program called the Team Management Leadership Program which
is like a year of like free coaching.
Yeah, it's basically
like a personal coach for a year,
and also communication coaching. So Yulin, when she was on team in LA, we created WSA, and I was like, "This is amazing! Like, how are you doing what you're doing?" And you're like,
"Did I create that during?"
I think it was when you were on team in LA.
That's pretty cool.
I'm just finishing my year-long team management leadership program, and instead of team in San Jose, which is where I did my course, I created Skate Like a Girl SF Bay Area, and it's just been awesome. And now, like I can't even thank you enough, because at first I was like, why does she ask me to do this? Like, is she getting paid for this? Like, I don't want to do this 3-day course where they say like anything is possible. I'm like, that sounds cheesy. And then through this education, it's just training. It's personal and professional development. It's performance training. It's like I become a better skateboarder because of it. It's crazy.
I practiced giving a speech in front of 1,000 people, and the goal was to have them either cry or laugh within 3 minutes. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So just things that I didn't think I could do. Like, it was just really freeing, and like, we both are advocates for people taking on any of the programs. It starts with the forum, which is like the initial course, but it honestly, like, it just made such a difference. Like, I'm best friends with my parents now. Like, I got married.
You got married?
Yeah. So
I launched Yunexis.
Yeah, you created Yunexis.
And if you get a chance, go to Anna's Taqueria for me.
In Boston?
Yeah.
That's what she's selling stuff in. Thanks for tuning in, Stephanie. I'm stoked that you guys got to join. If there's no more questions, you can also submit questions via email, and we can also shoot you a message back. But we are super stoked that you guys joined. And for those of you watching later, we're going to have more episodes. And thank you so much for, obviously, you know how much, but for everything that you've done, not just for me, but for all the pro skaters, just skaters everywhere, because it all trickles down. Like, the fact that like Lacey is on Nike now, like that opens up so many doors that we'll never even know for girls. And then of course the contests and just all the other stuff that we're doing inside of this industry, this community, like it makes a real difference. Like,
thank you.
We're living into a world where girls can do anything they want, and there's less of this idea of like it hasn't been done before, because now it's being done. So like that's really awesome.
I think one of your, just to wrap, like you're wondering what some of the highlights were, and I think the biggest highlight for me is when a client says to me, I'm now living my dream life.
Yeah.
Like, thank you, we did it.
Yeah. So awesome.
It's like to see someone just like free and happy and feel like that, like they belong in this world.
Yeah.
And they're fully self-expressed and like not even getting out of survival mode, but like life on steroids,
creative mode. Yeah, like
creative mode.
Like, I'll start a brand, I'll do this, or whatever.
Like that's the biggest gift.
Yeah.
To like, yeah, like it's like you've opened the door on a caged bird, and like the falcon has taken flight. And
that's awesome.
I'm just, yeah, it brings me to tears, really. Just seeing how happy it can make someone.
Yeah. I mean, you gave that to me, and you're just continuing to do that for, you know, your clients and everyone else beyond that. All the girls that follow and are friends and fans of Lacey and everyone else. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and keep posted for the next episode. We'll be posting on our Instagram. You can follow Yulin at Yulino. It's in the comments, the description of the video, and also follow Yunexis Agency, where she shares updates about all the wins and all the awesome stuff that everyone's creating. And we appreciate you guys joining us. And hopefully this inspired you a little bit to go out and do whatever it is that you want to do. So give us feedback in the comments, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Yulin.
Thanks.
Bye. Bye, guys.